Basically, we're all in a very dangerous situation and it's quite likely that we're going to die. Back to you, Steve. Well, that were Dave with the weather. We'll be back later with more headlines.
Next up on TalkTube, it's Dear Mason.
TalkTube. Hello and welcome. You're listening to TalkTube, the talk radio station that listens. And this is Dear Mason, with me, Mason Dog. You've got problems, and I'm gonna solve them. This morning, I was thinking about how amazing it is that growing up, I used to wonder what it would be like to be a superhero, and now I know. It's a monumental task. The world always needs saving. There are always more problems. You solve one and another one takes its place. A wise man once said, with great talent comes great responsibility, and now I know what those words mean. You know, I could be rich. I could be a model or a movie star, but when you're born with a mixture of integrity, empathy, and humility, as well as the depth of insight that I have, it would frankly be selfish to pursue fame rather than try to help people. I have a gift, and I have to share it with the world. It's only fair. I see the world for what it truly is. A place full of desperate, needy people who just need a friend. And I'm that guy. It's a sad fact, but there are so many people who are so wrapped up in their own egos that they don't have the time to just connect with people and listen to their problems. The world needs somebody humble who's just willing to listen, and that's where I come in. Remember, if you need my help, you can call 926-537 and leave a voicemail, or send an email to talkTubeRadio@gmail.com containing either an audio file or a written message. We've got a busy show today, so let's get to the first caller.
Dear Mason, I have more of a hypothetical question here. So imagine that you move into a new house. It's an old house and everybody claims that it's a weird house, weird things happen in it. And you find out that you have this weird girl as a roommate who is semi-translucent, kind of sometimes crawls in the walls and sometimes speaks in tongues, but said girl is also a goth and you're kind of into that. My question is it unethical to ask a ghost out? And if not, what's the best way to do so? Hypothetically speaking, of course.
What a great way to start the show. This right here is why I do this job, and why it's so important. People like this caller need to know that they can reach out to somebody for help. This is a delicate topic, and I promise that I'll approach it with the reverence it deserves. Firstly, I don't believe in so-called hypothetical situations. We all know that when somebody says something is hypothetical, they mean it's 100% true. It's just like when somebody says that their friend has a problem. Inevitably, that means that they are actually the ones with the problem and they just don't want to admit it. It's okay, caller. You don't need to pretend. Whatever situation you find yourself in, I'm always here for you, and I never judge the people who call into this show. I honestly can't express the level of admiration that I feel for your bravery. Starting a relationship with a goth is a challenging concept, to say the least. I think the fact that you're willing to do so shows that you have the level of strength and fortitude that so few of us possess. Secondly, and this is incredibly important, so please listen closely, you simply cannot spend your life worrying about whether what you do is ethical or not. It's time for a life lesson. What most people don't realize is that ethics is a branch of conspiracy theory created by crypto neo-progressive swingbait trapdoor idealists who want us to be miserable. If you truly want something, then nobody has the right to tell you it's unethical, and I assure you I have never considered ethics when making a decision. Now let's talk about the fact that you're about to initiate a relationship with a non-corporeal entity, because believe it or not, this isn't my first experience with this kind of situation. When I was in university, I knew a girl who was dating a version of herself from a parallel universe. It was a long-distance relationship and they could only communicate via mirror. Although it was an unconventional partnership, it was simply one of the most healthy, committed, loving relationships I've ever come across. I wish you could have seen it, because it was beautiful. They were so in sync. When one of them moved, so did the other. It was like they were tethered together. Unfortunately, the girl's so-called therapist tried to convince her it was simply her own reflection, but we knew the truth. Honestly, this is a prime example of why you should never listen to somebody who's paid to give advice. Most of the time they're fraudsters. Except for me. I have a certificate to prove I'm an expert. Listen, if you love this girl, you can make it work. I promise. The fact that she no longer possesses a corporeal form isn't a problem. Death is not an obstacle when it comes to love. After all, in the immortal words of the great Celine Dion, the heart will go on and on. I get very emotional when I think of that song, so I think it's time for a commercial break.
Clinkety clink, it's time for a drink. The heat is on and it's time to chill. This weekend, if you're sitting in the scorching summer sun enjoying a barbecue with your friends, don't drink water, that's lame. Why hydrate when you can just trick your body into thinking you are? Forget about dehydration and liver failure, who cares? Organ transplants are easier than ever. We all know nothing pairs better with overly salty char-grilled meat than an ice-cold alcoholic beverage. Big Bob's Boozy Bargains will make sure you never go thirsty again. This weekend, take your pick of 10 crates for just $10.99. That's 200 bottles or cans for just $10.99. Please drink responsibly.
TalkTube. Welcome back. You're listening to Dear Mason on TalkTube, the talk radio station that listens. The other day, I was enjoying a pint in the pub with a dear friend of mine who looked at me and said, "Do you think you'll ever stumble across a problem you can't solve?" And I told him, absolutely not, and I truly believe that. Next up we have an email submission by Lauren, who asks, "How can you write if you can't see?" Lauren, that's an excellent question. Personally, I don't understand this. I have such respect for blind people. They're so brave to carry on their lives. I don't know how I'd cope if I couldn't see. I think the answer is you can't write if you can't see. That's why there are literally no blind authors. There'd be no point. Why would you read a piece of writing by a blind person? You wouldn't listen to a symphony composed by a deaf person. That would be stupid. I simply can't write an email if I can't look at the keyboard, so I can't imagine how a blind person would do it. Perhaps they train their guide dogs to type for them. Admittedly, that would be challenging with the dog's claws, but it seems more believable than a blind person doing it themselves. So, let's see who's next.
Dear Mason, I'm hungry. I'm very, very hungry, and you're the only bloke I can trust. Listen. I'm a law-abiding, legitimate businessman that spent the last 20 years building a highly successful, respectable business running sensitive operations regarding the security in museums, art galleries, jewel stores, casinos and bank vaults. But I've got a big problem. I've come to believe that one of my employees is a mole, which is a term we use in my line of work for somebody who isn't who they claim to be. This individual has been leaking trade secrets to an organisation that wishes to shut my business down. Now the net's closing in, time's running out, and I need to find this mole so I can deal with them accordingly. What should I do?
My God. That is quite simply the worst thing I've ever heard. I'm so sorry. You must be heartbroken. Nothing hurts quite like placing your trust in somebody and having them betray you. If it helps, I'm sure the reason that they're doing it is that they're jealous of your success, which is something I find incredibly relatable, to say the least. As you may know, I've had a lot of people stab me in the back too. After we divorced, wifey number 2 sold a story to the tabloids that I have a freakishly small thumb. I suffered a lot of ridicule, and it damaged my self-confidence until I did some research and found out that the size of my thumb is perfectly average. Thank you very much, Sandra. I think the best thing to do is set a trap, or perform a sting operation, as the police would say. You need to feed your employees a variety of false information and see what gets leaked. That will help you isolate the snake in the grass. Once you've identified this mole, you can sit down and have a reasonable conversation with your employees about what you expect from your subordinates. Remember, it's vital that you send a clear message that underlines your authority and shows that you won't tolerate this sort of treachery so that nobody else steps out of line. From one successful man to another, take it from me, you will always have a target painted on your back. There will always be people jealous of your success who seek to bring you down at every turn. Don't let them. Okay, we'll be right back after this commercial break. Remember the good old days. The days when real men drove big cars with loud engines. The days when you were a maverick of the road with an insatiable need for speed. Back then, you didn't want a carbon footprint. You wanted an entire crater. You used to walk behind the wheel, put the pedal to the metal, and race along like nothing could stop you. That was another life. Before you became a family man with responsibilities, and a wife who wanted you to drive something safe and sensible. These days you feel caged, and now you need something more. The Road Ripper Triple X Titan, luxury car monthly's car of the century. It might look like a people carrier, but with bulletproof tyres, missile-proof windows, and 5 million pounds of body armour. When the world descends into nuclear Armageddon, you will be the last man standing. With a whopping 50,000 horsepower, it goes from 0 to 1,000 miles per hour in 0.5 seconds. You'll be driving through residential areas, and you'll never go that fast. But at least you know you could. Women will think you're a good father, and men will think you're a stallion. The Road Ripper Triple X Titan looks like a people carrier, drives like a beast. TalkTube.
Dear Mason, I'm desperate for your help. I'm calling about my kid. I think she might be evil, and I'm scared. It all started with this weirdly detailed drawing she did of me being impaled on a unicorn's horn. I mean, it was actually kind of good, but I didn't even know a 6-year-old could draw blood that realistically. A few weeks ago, I found her in the bathroom filing her teeth so they were super sharp, and I had to run away to lock myself in my bedroom because she was trying to bite me. She spent 10 minutes trying to kick the door in. Last night, I woke up with her standing over me, coating me with seasoning. When I opened my eyes, she looked right at me and said, "I wonder what wine pairs best with human flesh. Do you know, Mummy?" I'm scared she's going to kill me, Mason. What do I... Oh, God, she's coming! I have to go!
This is incredibly disturbing. I have goosebumps right now. I've heard of the woesome ones and the terrible twos, but I have never heard of the satanic sixes before. This is why I don't have and will never have children. They're evil. I think we can all agree that the world would be a much better place if we were all born 18 years old. This is society's fault. When you have a culture that encourages children to use their imaginations, this is what you get. Movies and TV, literature, video games and board games, etch-a-sketches and colouring books, they all encourage children to think, which turns them into cannibalistic murderers. I think your best and only option is to act quickly and decisively before she kills you. The unfortunate truth is you need to get rid of her. The forest is a fantastic place to abandon a child. It's a tried and tested technique. You just need to make sure that she doesn't have anything that she can leave as a trail, or she may find her way back to you. If you don't want to go into a forest, I understand, they are pretty spooky. You could always lock her in a cage or throw her in a well. Failing that, you could always put her up for adoption. At least she's somebody else's problem then. Good luck, caller. It sounds like you're going to need it. It's time for a commercial break. Introducing the new X-Phone Smart Droid Model 5. It's exactly the same as the Model 4, but now it's milk bottle white and twice the price, so you know it's good, and you want it. It's got a 3500 megapixel camera, with a zoom that's effective up to 9K. You can start that private investigation business you've been dreaming of, send pictures of your neighbor's yard to the HOA, or snap expert photos of your ugly kids to share on social media. It's okay, we'll all pretend we care, we promise. We know you got a short attention span, that's why we guarantee that the Model 5 will break within 18 months, but by then we'll release the Model 6, and you'll buy that too. The X-Phone Smart Droid Model 5. It looks good, and that's all that really matters. Indulge your addiction to buying things and get it now, right this second. Don't think about it, just do it. TalkTube. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to TalkTube, the talk radio station that listens, and this is Dear Mason. You've got problems, and I'm gonna solve them. You know, people say to me, how do you do it, Mason? How do you give such fantastic advice? And I tell them, it's just what I was born to do. So let's see who I can help now.
Hello, Mason. It's me again. I'm calling today in regards to the animal theft in my local area, which is becoming an inconvenient nuisance at best and quite troubling at worst. You see, I'm dealing with quite a lot of stress right now. More and more people are reporting their animals stolen, and there are more missing posters going up every day. The problem is, I'm currently in possession of, by which I mean I legitimately own, quite a lot of animals that bear a striking resemblance to those that have been reported stolen or otherwise missing. I'm afraid somebody might get the wrong end of the stick, Mason. If somebody sees one of my pets, they might get the wrong end of the stick and I might get in trouble. At first I tried removing all of the missing posters one by one, but since there are so many of them, it's becoming quite a time-consuming task. I simply don't have enough hours in the day between feeding my pets and adopting more of them. Basically, I'm wondering what I should do. Do I sell the animals, set them free, dispose of them in some way? Honestly, I can't afford for people to get the wrong idea about me, Mason. My neighbours have only just got over the meat incident, and I really can't afford to draw any more attention to myself. Last time I called, you didn't take me very seriously, and I would like to remind you that this is a very serious situation. In fact, I'd say it's a matter of life and death. I really hope you can help me, Mason, because if you can't, I'm afraid that things might escalate to an undesirable point. Okay, bye.
I apologise in advance for being slightly vulgar, but I just can't help it because this sort of thing really ticks me off. Rodney, I understand that you're new here, but please explain to me why you allowed that call. We have a screening process for a reason.
Well, Mason, when they made that call, I believe they were being incredibly serious, and it's quite clear that they need your help.
I disagree with you, Rodney. I disagree, and as we both know, I'm always right. That's why I'm the host and you're a lowly producer. Let's be honest, I do all the hard work and all you do is press a few buttons, but it seems you can't even do that right. Listen very closely, caller. Although you do have a very familiar sounding voice, I have no idea who you are, and quite frankly, I don't care. If you want to talk about inconvenient nuisances, why don't you try taking a look in the mirror? This is a radio phone-in advice show. That's no joke. This is serious business. People's lives hang in the balance. The people who listen to this show are desperate. They need to know that there is somebody who will listen to them. When they get in touch with me, they do so to make their lives better by utilising my wisdom. When we receive prank calls, that damages the reputation of the show, which damages my reputation, and that is a step too far, because if people think that I'm a joke, they might not listen to me, and that might put them in grave danger.
I really think that you'll be the one that's in grave danger if you don't listen to this caller, Mason.
Do you really, Rodney? Do you really? Well, guess what? I don't really want to hear your opinions. I don't want to hear you at all. When you first started on this show, I told you that I didn't want to hear from you because you're a producer, not a host. I'm very disappointed. Animal doppelgangers and missing posters. Does that really sound like a serious situation to you, Rodney? No, don't answer. That was a rhetorical question. If we give airtime to these prankster comedians, how are people ever supposed to trust us and call in with serious issues? Listener, please, don't let Rodney's incompetence and this time waster put you off. Don't be disenfranchised. If you have a serious issue, like the man whose friend was betraying him, and the woman who was trying to ethically navigate a romance with a non-corporeal entity, call me. I promise I can help. Alright, let's see who needs my wisdom next.
Yeah, Mason. I'm calling because, listen, I listen to you like all the time, and you always told me that you give such good advice, but I followed your advice, and now, my wife, she took the kids, and she left. You said that you were a relationship expert. And I believed you, man. I believed you. I trusted you. And now, I'm sitting here alone. I'm wasted. I think I shit myself. I don't know what to do.
Okay, now I'm really ticked off, because you're bringing my integrity into question, and that's unacceptable. This is the problem with today's society. Everybody wants to blame somebody else rather than owning their own accountability. When I say I'm a relationship expert, that's not a baseless claim, it's a fact, and I have a certificate to prove it. If my advice isn't working for you, that's a problem with you, not me. You claim that you listen all the time, but it seems what you're actually doing is passively hearing rather than actively listening. And if you knew the difference between those two things, your wife wouldn't have left you. Listener, you're sitting getting drunk, weeping in your own feces in the rain. How can you expect your wife to have respect for you if you don't have respect for yourself? It's pretty simple, listener. A relationship is like a job. If you don't like your job, choose not to work there. If you don't like the person you're in a relationship with, choose not to be with them. If you want your wife back, stop crying and just do it. Stop blaming other people for your failures. I really do hope that everything works out for you. All you need to do is start actually listening and follow my advice. It's that simple. We'll be right back after this commercial break. So, spill the tea, who you seeing these days? Well, actually, I'm single right now. Oh my god, did you just say single? And don't stay a gross, lonely loser forever. Enhance your dating experience by joining Meat Market. Start wading through the thousands of profiles, most of which are fakers, liars, cheaters, scammers and psychos who stole other people's pictures from the internet so you can try and find your one true love. You'll probably mostly meet creepy weirdos who want to solicit nudes from you, and you could meet a serial killer who wants to dismember you limb from limb. But there's a small chance you could find your soulmate. Isn't love worth the risk? Because anything, literally anything, is better than being alone, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying or delusional. Whether you're cripplingly introverted, aggressively antisocial, or just intensely lazy, Omnivore is the subpar delivery service for you. We're doing our best to ensure you never have to suffer through another social interaction ever again. With our wide selection of food, booze and groceries, you never need to leave the house again. And with our new contactless delivery service, you don't even need to make eye contact or go through the cumbersome task of saying thank you. Just wait until our delivery driver has placed your order outside and open the door when you're entirely sure they're gone. On top of all of that, we're proud to say we're putting traditional retail stores out of business. They just can't compete with our convenience. If you're bored, you can waste hours mindlessly scrolling through an endless list of big chain stores and low-budget takeaways with equally low hygiene ratings. And if you're worried your bank account might be too full, we've got you covered. Although your order might seem shockingly cheap at first, we're proud to say our astronomically high service fees and delivery charges soon add up, and your money will be gone in no time. Our drivers are vaguely committed to completing your order. If you don't live on a busy main road and your address isn't immediately obvious, don't worry, they can still find where they need to go up to 35% of the time. If there's a problem, like your food is cold, your order's wrong, or it doesn't show up at all, just take a picture, send it to us, and we may possibly give you a partial refund that might take up to 3 to 8 days to land in your bank account. Omnivore, your life is subpar, and so are we. TalkTube. Welcome back everybody, you're listening to TalkTube, the talk radio station that listens, and this is Dear Mason, with me, Mason Dark, fixing the world's problems one call at a time. Let's see what troubled soul needs me now. We have an email submission from AGuyWhoDoTheThing, who says, Mason, I recently landed what I can only describe as my dream job at a multinational investment firm in the communications department. Our job is to negotiate and liaise on high capital deals across national and governmental borders. I love my job. The pay is great, the people are great, and I love my actual job duties. Except for one. On my resume, I claimed to speak 3 languages. English, French and Chinese, because I took a semester of each in college. I basically know enough to order a cup of coffee or ask where the toilet is. I've been placed in the translations and negotiations department. Every time I'm asked to translate a written communication, I can kinda BS it by using Google or a translation dictionary that I bought at a discount bookstore. But I've been placed on 3 live calls now, and each time I literally have no idea what I'm hearing, and I have to speak gibberish to pretend I'm actually doing my job. I am terrified I'm going to be discovered any day now. What do? Rodney, please tell them to keep it down in Studio 2. I'm trying to do a show and their music is so loud. Okay, usually I can't stand liars. They make me extremely angry. However, since you've done it to advance your career, I actually respect your drive. But if you're going to get caught out, you've got 2 options. Either you come clean, or you double down on the lies. I think the latter is the better option because you'd probably lose your job if you came clean. The best course of action is to fake a good old-fashioned medical emergency. Nobody questions somebody who's going through something medical. I recommend trying to convince them that you've lost either your voice, your hearing, or your memory. Your voice sounds like the worst of the 3 options, because if you fake some sort of serious throat issue, they may just ask you to type down what you're hearing in the calls, and then you're screwed. Your hearing sounds like a better option because nobody will expect you to know sign language straight away, and that buys you more time to either learn sign language or come up with more lies. Personally, I'd go with your memory. Nobody's going to question that, and I can't see what will go wrong. It's not like they can test you to see if you still have your memory or not. So, to summarise, I recommend faking some sort of tragic accident that leads to a head injury and sees you develop amnesia surrounding the years during which you were at college, and if they try to fire you because you can no longer speak English, French or Chinese, you can sue them, which I think we can all agree is a lot of fun. We've got time for one last caller, so let's see which honest, upstanding member of society needs my help next.
Dear Mason, I want to be a famous writer. I haven't actually started my book, but I know it's going to be great. Listen, I'm gonna start it soon. I spent today as a rest day watching Doctor Who, but I've planned each stop on my Future World tour. I've sewn elbow patches on my jackets. But I was calling because I don't know why my book isn't making any progress. Mason, do you have any advice for me?
Oh, lovely. It's an author, otherwise known as a liar. You can call it fiction all you like, but dragons, dwarves, elves, orcs, fairies and fascist dystopian societies don't exist, so if you write about them, you're nothing more than a liar. You may think it's harmless, but it simply isn't, because it's people who peddle their imaginations that damage the reality cortex in children's brains and turn them into psychopathic, cannibalistic murderers, as I mentioned earlier. That poor mother was in danger of being eaten by her own child. I hope you're ashamed of yourself. Even though I do think you're turning the world into a dangerous place, I'll give you advice, because it's what I do and I'm incredibly good at it. Since you're fascinated by trashy science lies like Doctor Who, it might excite you to know that robots are scarily smart these days. Reasonable, level-headed people like myself know that artificial intelligence is the scourge of humanity and it will lead to our downfall. But if you're the sort of person who would refer to themselves as an author, you don't care about that. Why not go online, find one of these AI bots, program in whatever you've written so far and let the robot do the hard work for you. I've also heard that there are certain people who know how to perform dark magic rituals to summon the dead and use a ghostwriter, which sounds awful, but again, I wouldn't expect anything better from an author. In short, there's a variety of options. Just pick one. You see, this is why I'm invaluable, because I'll give impartial, unbiased advice to people that I don't even like that much. I really can't describe how difficult it is to do my job, because it's hard not to allow the problems of the callers to affect me emotionally. I just care about the people who call into this show so much, which is why I give out my advice for nothing more than £50,000 per episode, which is a bargain. Well, I think that's all we've got time for. Thank you to everyone who got involved in this show, and you're welcome. Tune in next time to see whose life I improve next.
That was Dear Mason, fixing the world's problems one call at a time. Next up, it's time for another dose of existential dread, totally unbiased brainwashing and terror. Stay tuned for the news.
TalkTube.